1944, inside the gates of Auschwitz-Birkenau, a prisoner smuggled a camera past armed guards. What he photographed would become some of the only images ever taken from inside an active extermination camp. Photography inside Nazi concentration camps was forbidden. The penalty for being caught was death, and yet a handful of prisoners, at extraordinary personal risk, chose to document what was happening around them. Their names are barely remembered, their photographs are not. Among them was a member of the Sonderkommando, the group of prisoners forced to work in the crematoria of Auschwitz-Birkenau. He has never been definitively identified. Historians know him only by his role. He was given a camera smuggled in by the Polish resistance, hidden inside a bucket normally used to carry soup to work details. In August 1944, he took 4 photographs in the space of a few frantic minutes. 2 show the burning of bodies in an open-air pit, smoke rising from a scene deliberately kept hidden from the outside world. The images are tilted, blurred at the edges. He shot them from the hip, from inside a gas chamber doorway, unable to raise the camera to his eye without being seen. A third shows women being forced to undress before entering the gas chamber, taken through the trees at a distance, the branches visible at the frame's edge, evidence of how the photograph was smuggled into existence. The camera and film were passed back out through the same resistance network, hidden inside a tube of toothpaste. From there, smuggled to Krakow, and eventually to London. The photographs surfaced only after the war. Blurred, tilted, imperfect, they are also irrefutable. He did not survive to see them published. Elsewhere, other prisoners took different risks. At Auschwitz, a Polish political prisoner named Wilhelm Brasse was forced to work as the camp's official identification photographer. He had trained as a portrait photographer before the war. For over 2 years, Brasse photographed tens of thousands of new arrivals. Each subject given only seconds to be recorded before being processed into the camp system. He later said he came to recognize, in some of the faces passing before his lens, the moment a person understood what awaited them. In January 1945, as Soviet forces approached, the SS ordered Brasse to destroy the negatives. He and other prisoners deliberately fed the photographic plates into the furnace slowly, damaging as few as possible, buying time until liberation arrived. Tens of thousands of his portraits survived. They remain, to this day, some of the only faces we have of the people sent through Auschwitz's gates. At Buchenwald, prisoner Jörg Renner worked in a similar position, photographing camp life under SS supervision. Some of his images, ostensibly propaganda material, quietly preserved details the regime never intended to be remembered. Not all documentation came from cameras. At the Łódź Ghetto, photographer Henryk Ross was employed by the Nazi administration to take official identification and propaganda photographs. In secret, he took thousands more. He photographed deportations, starvation, and the daily degradations of ghetto life. As liquidation of the ghetto neared in 1944, Ross buried his negatives in a metal box in the ground, uncertain if he would live to retrieve them. He did survive. In 1945 he returned and dug them up. Water damage had destroyed some. Thousands remained. Ross later testified using his photographs as evidence at the trial of Adolf Eichmann, one of the architects of the Holocaust. What unites these men is not just the act of photography, but the calculation behind it, the belief that evidence would outlast them even if they did not outlast the war. None of them had the luxury of composition, lighting, or a second attempt. Every image was taken once in secret at the risk of immediate execution. The Sonderkommando photographs remain some of the only visual evidence taken from inside a functioning gas chamber complex during the Holocaust. Historians have since used forensic analysis, tracing shadows and angles, to reconstruct exactly where the photographer stood and how little time he had. Wilhelm Brasse's negatives, saved from deliberate destruction, are held today at the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum, part of a photographic archive historians still use to identify victims. Henryk Ross's buried photographs became part of the historical record used in post-war tribunals, evidence that outlived the ghetto that produced it. These were not journalists. They were prisoners, forced laborers, men with no protection and no assurance anyone would ever see what they risked their lives to capture. They photographed not for fame, and not even certain the images would survive the war, let alone themselves. But they did survive. And today they remain among the only first-hand visual evidence of what took place behind those walls, a record that exists only because a small number of people decided that the truth was worth dying for.